والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Uh, in the name of Allah, most merciful, ever merciful, I praise Allah and I ask Him to send His peace and blessings to our honorable Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the members of his household, and those who follow their path till the Day of Judgment. I think the heat got to me. Deep inside, I'm very, very excited, though I may not sound like I'm excited. Just trying to get over the heat. But I'm really happy to be with you here today, going over this session. I want to think of myself. I don't want this to be a lecture. I want this to be more of a discussion. And sorry, let me just turn this off. And I want to think of myself as a facilitator, inshallah ta'ala. And I really want to thank Brother Zuhair for inviting me. And I'd like to thank you all for coming today, inshallah. My understanding is that the topic of our discussion will be the rights of believers, right? The rights of Muslims. Yes? No? Yeah? Okay. But I was hoping just to go around the room and get to know everybody, inshallah. So my name is Mohammed Faqih. My official title here is Imam and Religious Director. And what I do is I just serve people and talk and listen. So these are the three things that I do: provide services, I talk, and I listen. So that's all I do. And I've been here at this center for a decade now, for about 10 years. And I'm married and I have 3 children. And what I do is I just serve. Your name is what? People. Rama, okay. And listen. So these are the 3 things that I do. Okay. Provide services, I talk. So, okay. What do you guys do? Go to school? And I've been here at this center. So you're skipping school today? Oh, today is Sunday. Okay, I see. Just making sure. Okay. Married with, and I have 3 children. Okay. You're not ditching school, are you? Okay. Okay. Your name is what? Mama. Okay. June 14th of this year. So nice. What do you guys do? Go to school? So you're skipping school today? Alhamdulillah. Okay. Oh, today is Sunday. Okay, I see. Just making sure. It's the AC. And also, if you keep chewing, you won't be able to hear. You're not ditching school, are you? Go ahead. Okay, alhamdulillah. 14th of this year. Next. MashaAllah, nice. It's the AC. Nice. And also, if you keep chewing, you won't be able to hear. Nice. What's your name, sister? Okay. Next. Next. You have the same name? You have the same name? Oh, okay. What's your name? MashaAllah, nice. Where's Sammy? Hey, how you doing? What's your last name again? Abdul Ghani, okay. You're not related to Muhammad. You're not part of the Abdul Ghani clan, are you? Oh, I met you at Irvine, haven't I? Okay, nice. You're from Nazareth? My dad's from Nazareth. Oh, wow. He's not one of the disciples, is he? Nice. Where's Sammy? What's your last name again? Nice. Which part of the Netherlands? You're not part of the Abdul Ghani clan, are you? Okay, nice. Beautiful country. Nice. Oh, I met you at Irvine, haven't I? Okay,
Nice.
okay, nice, nice. You're from Nazareth? Oh, wow. He's not one of the disciples, is he?
MashaAllah.
Nice, nice, nice.
Nice.
Nice. Which part of the Netherlands? I didn't know your name was Yusuf. I didn't know that. Beautiful country.
I just know Abu Ashraf. Yeah, that's all. Okay, okay. Nice. Nice. Ah, no. Well, he's not accused of anything. He was very talented man. So your name would be Yusuf al-Najjar, which translates in English into Joseph the Carpenter. Amazing. That's just, wow. What a coincidence. You guys are actually carpenters?
I just know about
انتوا نجارين فعلا؟ يعني الصنعة موجودة يعني عندكم يعني. Nice. Okay.
Well, he's not accused
Nice.
of anything. He was very talented man. So your name would be Yusuf al-Najjar, which translates in English.
But you're not the honey guy, are you?
Carpenter. Amazing.
One of the honey guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
Okay.
You guys are actually
Evan?
into
Erwin. Ed with a D with a, or R? D. Okay.
الصنعة موجودة يعني عندكم.
Nice. Nice. Alhamdulillah.
But you're not the honey guy, are you?
Alaikum salam.
One of the honey guys.
Here? Nice. Oh, that's when I was in the East Coast. Okay. Great. Welcome.
Ed with a D with a, or R? D. Okay.
Nice meeting you. Great. Nice.
Nice.
Nice. Nice. Cool.
Here? Nice. Oh, that's when I was in the East Coast. Okay. Great. Welcome.
Nice. Where are you from? The city of Anaheim or
Nice meeting you.
Bellflower? Nice. That's beautiful. And you guys are spectators or are you like? Okay. Good. Nice. Jazakallah.
Where?
Jazakallah.
The city of Anaheim or?
Nice.
You guys are spectators or are you like?
No. So you are a commercial pilot? Okay. Nice. Nice. Okay. Good to have you here. We'd love to see you again and again. And then,
So you are a commercial pilot?
inshallah. Brother Jamal Zaheen has just joined our outreach services here. So him and Brother Zuhair together work together in the outreach department. So
Good to have
he's
you.
the latest, newest addition.
And then
So good to have you all here. Great. And then, okay. Well, I'm glad to have all of you here. Thank you very much for coming. Like,
services here. So him and the brother.
when we talk about the rights of the believers, I just want to go back and remember this point of history when the Prophet had a handful of people around him, just like almost, it's similar to the story of many prophets in the beginning.
I'm glad to have all of you here.
You
Thank
have
very much for coming.
someone who's chosen by God to be the recipient of his message
Talk about the
and
rights
to also be the person that conveys that message.
By the way, we missed someone. We missed your brother.
Of history, when the Prophet had a
Nice,
handful of
nice.
people
Salahuddin.
around him, just like
You were sitting in that corner hiding, huh?
the story of many
Salahuddin.
prophets. Again,
So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had. So what I'm saying, every prophet that came, God chose some, someone who was known for their nobility, for their honesty, for their integrity, and then they received the message. In the case of most of them, they were oblivious to their own reality when it comes to who they were, right? But of course, soon or when it's the right time, they find out. Like we know, we're told in the Quran. I'm sure there are very similar or verses in the Old Testament. We're told in the Quran about Musa, peace be upon him, when Moses found out, when God spoke to him and he found out he was the prophet of God. It came as a surprise. What is a shock? I mean, right? Now he knows God, he believed in God, right? But to be the prophet is not something that they were looking forward to, or something that they were aspiring to, or something that they studied, went to school to become, or got special training for in a special institution. Indeed, they were special, and God has prepared them for this, but it wasn't something that they were aspiring to achieve or become. They were not recruited and filled out applications and went through all kinds of tests and, right? It kind of happened, organically, and it was something that God basically prepared them to. And almost everything that a prophet goes through in his life is to prepare him to this task. Of course, we can also say that everything that we go through is to prepare us, to this particular moment. This moment is to prepare you for the next moment, and so on and so forth. So, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he didn't know he was going to be the prophet. It wasn't a concept that he was familiar with. But finally, when he received the message, now he had to basically call people to it. Those who accept his message and believe in him and embrace the truth with which he came, they become his companions, or they became his companions. The first person to respond, of course, to him, the first person to believe and to accept his message was none other than his own wife, Khadija, who reassured him, who actually saw in him, right, what he, peace and blessings be upon him, out of his humility, didn't acknowledge or did not focus on, right? So, and then within days, there was a handful number of people around him. His best friend before he was a prophet, Abu Bakr, his nephew, or his cousin Ali, right, was young. Abu Bakr within a very short period of time. Imagine Abu Bakr was someone very, very intellectual, and he had strong connections with people, who also were known to be independent thinkers, intellectuals. So within perhaps weeks, if not days, right, he was able to share the message with most, if not all, of his best friends, 6 of whom became Muslim. 6 of them, almost within days, they accepted Islam. Everything fell in place. Pretty much it was obvious, right? So now the Prophet has this band or this group of people around him who are known as believers, and they are the first Muslims, right? They are his companions. But what was the nature of the relationship between them? And of course, the number kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And now we have the followers of the Prophet Muhammad over the past, the number has been growing. Now the followers of Prophet Muhammad, or people who profess Islam, they make 1/4 of the world's population, right?
And still, in spite of all the things that are happening in the world, in spite of all the deficiencies that Muslims have, in spite of all the problems that we have, it still continues to be, the fastest growing religion. Pretty much it's happening on its own. We're not really doing as much as many other faith groups, right? It's just happening on it. Islam is making the case for itself, and people are just searching and finding. So now you have this big, huge family, right, of Muslims, and so the Prophet taught his companions that there are rights and there are duties that we have towards each other. But before I go into that, we must remember that we are part of even a larger community. We are a community within a community. The scholars consider every human beings who came after the Prophet, they consider him to be of his ummah, of his nation. At this point, and they divide them into two categories. One category they call Ummat al-Ijaba, the category that responded, right? People that responded. The other category is the category of people who did not respond or did not accept or did not hear the message, or they chose not to accept Islam. And they call that Ummat al-Da'wah, the invited or the invitees. They're invited. So you have those who responded to the invitation and those who have an open invitation, right? And as I said, 25% of the world's population responded, 75% did not respond. So in the Quran, we are told that we also have an obligation towards this larger group, towards humanity, right? So let us not assume as we talk about the rights that Muslims have amongst themselves that these rights do not, or that there are no other rights that extend to people who may be outside of this circle. So remember, there are two circles. One larger circle, and that is, as a matter of fact, we consider that to be the circle of our concern, right? And then you have part of the circle of our concern. Then you have a smaller circle, right? 25% of that bigger circle, and these are the Muslims. Within Muslims, you still have more circles, right? Right? You're the point, and then around you have your family, then you have your extended family, you have your neighbors, so the circle just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Of course, your first obligation is towards the smallest circle, right? Towards yourself and those who are around you, and the rights extend, go further and further, right? So those who are the closest to you, have more of a priority, right? So when we talk about these general rights, they are not to be understood as the only rights and that nobody else has any rights. No. As a matter of fact, one of the greatest scholars of our time, of our recent history, his son said that, my father told me, son, a believer is bigger than, he's greater than, well, not than the universe. I'm trying to translate it, the believer is as vast as the universe itself. And the entire planet Earth, is too small for a believer to be called home, let alone a small village. Because sometimes we get kind of, so why? Because we are universal, right? You're supposed to be universal. We're, God's, creation. We care for everybody as far as we go, right? If you happen to be lost in space for some reason and you run into somebody that needs help, you can't say, well, you're from different planet, I'm not, you still, if there is anything, any good that you can do anywhere, you should do it. One of the companions of the Prophet came to him and he said, give me advice, right? So the Prophet gave him very precise advice. He gave him 3 words. He gave him 3 points. Point number 1, be mindful of God wherever you may be. Doesn't matter, wherever you may be. Whether you're in the mosque, outside the mosque, at the mall, anywhere you are, you need to be mindful of God, right? And, so do the right thing. Number 2,
when you make a mistake, it didn't even say when you make a mistake. When you make a mistake, or sorry, if you make a mistake. Yarhamukallah. It doesn't say if you make a mistake. It says when you sin. It's assumed that we all have deficiencies and weaknesses. When you sin, when you commit a sin or you make a mistake, follow it with a good deed, and it will offset it. Make sure that you make up for it. Make sure that you redeem yourself and that you repent. And number 3, he said to him, وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. And make sure that you engage people with the best of conduct, with the best of behavior. He didn't say engage the believers. He said خَالِقِ النَّاسِ. An-nas is a word that literally means people. Specifically, it means non-Muslims. Specifically, it means non-Muslims. Usually, in the prophetic statements, or even in the divine, when an-nas, generally, an-nas refers to non-Muslims, people, right? So engage people with the best of conduct, because obviously this space we call Earth, or the space we call, or a country, or any geographic or space that you occupy, you're not there alone, and we're not there alone. It's a common place for all of us. Those who accept God and those who don't accept God. Those who believe in Him in a certain way and those who don't. Right? So it's a common place, and God allowed us, and we're all the children of Adam. We're all from the same set of parents, right? So we have to keep that in mind. So we look at it. So I just wanted to make sure that we have the big picture present. So, and in Surah Al-Hujurat, Surah 49, verse 13, God the Almighty says, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. O people, we have indeed created you from a male and a female, from a pair, right? Adam and Eve. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. And we made you into a people and into nations, right? Or into tribes. We made you into people and tribes, لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you may come to recognize, acknowledge, identify yourselves and each other. It's for identification purpose. We don't all look the same. We look different. We're from different, places, right? So it's for identification purpose, right? That we spread all over this planet. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Indeed, the most honorable of you in the eyes of God is the most pious, right? Is the best of you in terms of piety. No specific geographic location, right? Gives you more privileges. No particular ethnicity or language or culture gives you more privileges. Politically speaking, in your own, it might, but it shouldn't. In the eyes of God, nothing gives you more privilege than somebody else who doesn't share the same background or the same, nothing. Except the only thing that distinguishes people is taqwa. Taqwa means piety. Piety is something that is in the heart and only God knows. I mean, we see its reflection and we see its effects in people's behavior or conduct, right? And choices. But it's not something, none of us has a piety gauge on his forehead or somewhere on his wrist or something. Oh, today I have extra piety. So, and you're running down on piety. So you're running low. I'm better than you. You can't do that. It's in the heart. The Prophet said in another narration, he said, piety is in the heart. And he pointed to his chest. Only God knows it. So only God knows who's best. As for what human beings, what we do when we have prejudice or when we look down upon other people or we think of ourselves to be better than other people, is just foolish, and it's inspired by Satan, because that's the satanic spirit. I'm better than him. Satan said to God, I'm better than Adam. You make me bow down to someone that who knows? How did he figure that out? Who told him that he's better? He wasn't better. Right? Only God knows who's best, right? And But however, as I said, piety shows in our actions. It shows in our choices, in our behavior, in our conduct, in our treatment of people, in our actions and reactions, in the way we treat not, enemies before, before friends, right? Those who offend us. Right? That says a lot about it, about your character, right? And in the same statement, the Prophet talked about how piety is in the heart. He actually said, talking to the believers, make sure that you do not despise each other. It's enough of an evil for a believer to look down upon another believer, to think of someone else to be lesser than them because of whatever, gender, social status, educational, whatever, credentials, anything. Definitely, race or ethnicity. To look down upon someone for that, right? That's enough. That's enough to make that person evil. For someone to think of themselves to be better, or for someone to think of someone else to be lesser than them. So, what are the specific rights that the believers have towards each other? Generally speaking, in the Quran, in Surah chapter 9, verse 71, for those who are taking mental notes, Surah 9, verse 71, God describes the believers to be friends and allies of each other. They need to be looking after each other, taking care of each other, right? And it says, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. Believing men, or believers, men and women, are protectors one of another. يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. They enjoin what is good or what is just. They stand up for justice, for what is right. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And they forbid what is evil. وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ. And they observe regular prayers. وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةِ. And they practice the giving regular charity. Right? وَيُطِيعُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. And they obey God and His Messenger. This is what the believers do. They look after each other. They facilitate that for each other. And that's why, for instance, we are commanded, ordered, encouraged to come to pray together in congregation 5 times a day on a regular basis. For our own individual interests and for our own spiritual well-being, emotional, but as well as for the sake of other people. You know that when we come together, when you come here and you see people, even if you come here once a week, that you get inspired, you feel a lot better, right? We know that when we're fasting together in Ramadan, there are people who do voluntary fasts outside Ramadan, but when you do it with the whole community together, it has a different feel. It's just amazing. It's fascinating. It strengthens you. It motivates you. So, in addition to the fact that we look after each other or we take care of each other, which means that we don't, of course, commit any of the violations in which we may be actually exploiting one another or taking advantage of each other. Specific rights mentioned by the Prophet said, and by the way, when you hear these kind of numbers, that doesn't mean these are the only things. It might be that the Prophet, on a particular occasion, he wanted to emphasize 5 or 6. Remember 5 rights. Remember 5 or 6 duties that you have towards one another. That does not mean that these are the only duties. So on one particular occasion, the Prophet said, حَقُّ الْمُسْلِمِ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِ سِتْ. There are 6 rights Muslims have towards each other. When he meets him, when 2 individuals meet, one should greet the other. Greeting, Assalamu alaikum. And it's very strange, even those who have been Muslim all their lives. This is one of the basic, by the way, one of the ways early Muslims identified each other was through that. Because Assalamu alaikum was the greeting of Muslims. It was known, right? So when somebody said Assalamu alaikum to the other person, they knew that this was Muslim. That's how they recognize each other. I don't know what happened to us and why that you don't find many Muslims, it's very unfortunate, doing that. We don't even practice something as simple as
the one thing that distinguishes us from the beginning. How do you know that that's our greeting? So we should offer that to each other. We should be practicing that. And I don't know why it is. Maybe it's me. Maybe it has to do with me. People are either intimidated by me or scared by me, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't look like Muslim. But I don't know why when people see me, they're like, in public, they're like, or if I say Salaam Alaikum, they're like, oh my God, that's a Shaikh. I'm like, okay, just, Muslims are supposed to greet one another, right? Muslims are supposed to greet one another. I don't know why people don't do that. Now, I understand in Muslim majority countries, I mean, we need it here more than any other place. In Muslim majority countries, if you greet every Muslim you meet, you won't go anywhere. You'll be saying Salaam Alaikum to 1 million people, right? You won't, like, right? Because you're passing by. But at least here, we should when we see each other. It's one of the rights. They say that to offer or to greet someone is recommended, right? To respond to them is mandatory, right? In addition to the fact that the Prophet did not stop there, he actually went further and he said, because let's say two people run into each other. Who greets who? Huh? Whoever is first? What do you mean? Let's say we both arrived at the same place at the same time. Come on. Everybody will consider themselves to be better. The Prophet gave us certain criteria. Or, well, they do that? Okay, wait, before you say anything. Right? Okay. No. Okay, the Prophet said, yes. Whoever makes the first eye contact, well, what if you're not supposed to make eye contact? Mhm. Okay, yeah. So basically, the comer, the one who's arriving or coming, is the person who's supposed to say Salaam Alaikum. Because sometimes people, like they're sitting here, I walk into a place, I'm about to say Salaam Alaikum, they're like, Salaam Alaikum. No, wait until I say Salaam Alaikum. I'm the one coming, right? So whoever is arriving to a place, if you're sitting and somebody else is walking in, they're the ones that say Salaam Alaikum, right? Also, if one is riding and the other one is walking, the one riding says Salam to the one walking or standing. Also, if you're passing by somebody, you say Salam to them. You greet them. Also, the smaller number, let's say there's two individuals and there's 10 people walking and they run into each other. The smaller number greets the larger number, right? The younger greets the older. If two people arrive to the same place at the same time, one is older, obviously older, because you got to be careful with that. You call somebody older, right? And I know everybody's like, oh, I'm greeting you first, don't greet me. I'm a lot younger than you. So supposedly the younger, person is supposed to greet the older person, right? So these are just some of the etiquette of salam. And the Prophet said, you do not only greet those whom you know and recognize, because some people, they only greet those people who are from the same background, from their same country or the same village, right? Or people that they know. So it happened. I remember one time I went to a particular center, not here, somewhere else, and nobody knew me there. So when I walked in and I said, Salaam Alaikum, they're like, do we know you? Like, the look was, I was like, okay, maybe I'm invisible. So I greeted another person. It doesn't matter what their skin color was. They all didn't respond. They all just stared at me. They're like, who's this guy? So on my way to the pulpit to give the sermon, they were all just staring at me. So I decided to change the topic of my sermon. And I told them, well, here's my sermon. I had notes. I folded it and I put it in my pocket and I said, I think we need to talk about the etiquette of greeting. Of the etiquette of greeting, the Prophet said, you should spread peace, and you should greet those whom you know and those whom you don't know. Those that know you or you know them, you greet them because you know them, right? Those that you don't know, you greet them because you should what? Get to know them, right? وَسَلِّمْ عَلَى مَنْ عَرَفْتَ وَمَنْ لَمْ تَعْرِفْ. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him,
when he went to Medina, one of his companions, who was at the time a Jewish rabbi, said, his name is Abdullah ibn Salam, he was a noble man. He said, when the Prophet arrived, and this is before he even accepted Islam, before he became one of his followers. He said, when the Prophet arrived, I remember that the first thing that he said, he attended the first sermon, right? He said, of the things that he said was, Ayyuhan nas, O people, afshu salam, spread peace. And we do it, you know. When you greet people with peace, that you're spreading peace. Because when you come and you say salam, you're actually making a commitment. You're telling that salam is not just a greet, hey, what's up? No. You're making a commitment. Every word that you utter, there is a contract between us and God. There's covenant. That when we utter something, it will be written down. And also as-salam is one of the names of God. Right? So you're actually declaring peace to that person. You're extending, you're giving your word to that individual that you come here with nothing but peace and for nothing but peace. So you're actually making a commitment. It's actually a contract. You're telling that person, I intend nothing but peace. Peace be upon you. You're praying for them, and that's why they should respond. Right? Also, the etiquette of salam is that when you greet someone, in Arabic, of course, is salam, right? In Hebrew, it's shalom, right? So when you give salam, which means peace, when you give the greeting of peace to someone, they're supposed to respond. And the way to respond to it is with a similar response, something of an equal amount or better. So you say, Assalamu alaikum, they should say, Wa alaykum assalam. If you say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, peace be upon you and the mercy of God, you should respond. The least you can respond with is, Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah. You can go further, but this is the least you should do. If the person says, Wa alayk assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, may God's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you, you respond with, same to you, may God's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you. This is how they respond to each other. By the way, we're also taught, I learned this lesson recently, that when we greet our parents, we should greet them with a complete salam, full. Especially our mothers. You know, one of the companions of the Prophet used to do that. You greet them with a full greeting. Peace and blessings of God be upon you. You know, so that's what you're doing. You're offering peace, and they said that responding to it becomes mandatory. It's your moral obligation to do that. So this is the first right? Spreading of peace. Number 2, when a Muslim invites you, you should accept their invitation. Of course, there is a debate amongst the scholars. What does invitation here exactly mean? Some of them say it's exclusive to their wedding invitation. If they invite you to, they get married and they throw a party, then you should, that's what, But again, there is. But generally speaking, if you don't have a reason to refuse the believer's invitation, you have an obligation towards that person to accept their invitation. So, and I hereby let you know all that I will accept any invitation from any one of you, inshallah. So, at your convenience. And I love Dutch cuisine, by the way. I'm just That was a joke. Number 3, the third right? The third right. When the believer or when the Muslim sneezes and says, of course the etiquette is as a Muslim, when we sneeze, what do we say? Alhamdulillah. We praise God. Right? So the person praises God. When the person does that, you should respond to them. And I know here in America, it's part of the culture that
when you sneeze, what do people say? Bless you, right? There's something similar to it in Islam, but in Islam you wait for the person, first of all, to catch their breath, and for them to pretty much wake up from the shock, because some people sneeze, it's like a thunder. So you need them to be able to just regain their balance, right? And then when they say Alhamdulillah, they praise God, you say to them, Yarhamukallah, may God have mercy upon you, or may God bless you. That's what it means, And some people are very quick to say bless you, by the way. They're like, you're not even done with your sneeze, right? You may even go for they immediately say it, and you're trying to say thank you, but yeah. So when somebody sneezes, again, as a Muslim, when you sneeze, you should say Alhamdulillah. When you say Alhamdulillah, the person says Yarhamukallah, mercy of God be upon you. Okay, so that's the third. What if someone continues to sneeze? They have runny nose, and these are just symptoms of them getting sick, and they fall ill. What happens? The Prophet said when a believer falls ill, when he becomes ill, you should visit him. You should visit that person. That's one of the rights. Of course, someone might say, well, every time someone, if it's allergy season, we're going to be just visiting everybody and catching whatever they have. No, I mean, it means when it's serious illness, right? If they're hospitalized, right? And it's amazing. I don't know if you've ever been hospitalized. May God protect and preserve each and every single one of you. But when you're hospitalized, then somebody comes and visits you. Someone just stops by and says, checks on you, and they share their thoughts or wishes with you. It makes a big difference. It boosts your morale. It boosts your, it's very motivating. It's uplifting, right? Which is very key for that individual's health and recovery process. If the person falls into depression, even if the illness wasn't that serious, it just becomes serious. So no wonder the Prophet says when a believer, when one of us falls ill and they're hospitalized, or they're under, they're getting some medical care, we should go and visit them. In some other places, the Prophet, of course, showed us that when you visit somebody, just make sure that you're positive, make sure that you don't take too long, because you don't want to disturb them. If they need to rest, you should. The idea is to share your thought, to share your concern, and to share your wishes with them. That's the idea. The idea is not to go there and sit. Some people go and visit someone and they're sitting there for forever. They go there and they start investigating. So what's wrong? What happened to you? Oh, doctor said it should be fine. So what is it exactly? And they become very, very noisy, and they start investigating and looking for more information. And also, by the way, you have to be very, very positive and uplifting. You can't go there and let's say somebody says, yeah, I was diagnosed with such and such, and you're like, oh my God, yeah, my cousin died of it. That is just horrible. You're supposed to be positive. You're supposed to be to give good examples and motivating. You're not supposed to sit there and right? Some people do that. Not, here's something that actually happened right in front of my eyes. We went to visit somebody. In one of the best hospitals, the person has a team of doctors, and then you have people visiting that person and asking, what's wrong on such and such? Is that because you eat such and such? Well, I don't know, maybe. You shouldn't eat that stuff. And they start giving medical advice. I'm like, excuse me, what are your credentials? Nothing, so why are you giving medical advice? Remember, you're going there to check on that individual, to pray for them, right? To support them, to show and to wish them well and leave. People ask me about gifts. If it's part of your culture, or if it's expected, or if you're close enough to that person, and if you know that they're going to enjoy this gift and you can afford it, do it. But I am all for simplicity. Let's keep it simple, because we shouldn't make something too complicated. Because if everybody has to take a gift, first of all, that person is going to be burdened with all these teddy bears that they have to take home, right? Secondly, or you may take something that they're allergic to, or you take a box of chocolate to somebody who is diabetic, right? And they just, you're teasing them, they're just sitting there frustrated, and they just offer it to their guests, right?
So, and we're just making it too complicated. If everybody has to, like, if I know that there are two individuals who are sick and I have to go and I'm expected to take something because that's what we have turned this culture into, I'm going to be discouraged, especially if I cannot afford it or if it's going to. So that's why we need to keep it simple. The Prophet teaches us the prophetic method is that you keep it simple, right? And the thought is what matters. And you go and check on that individual, you pray for them, and that means a lot. And that's, So let us not do it, right? Now again, if the person is close or if you can afford it and if it's appropriate for you to take a gift, do that by all means. And then the Prophet said that, and if that also of the rights of the believer is that when the believer dies, if a Muslim dies, the Muslims are supposed to offer prayer, the funeral service, and attend the service for that individual. That's one of the rights of the believers. In another narration, the Prophet said, and if he or she seek advice from you, give them the most sincere advice you have. If they seek it or if they need it, you give them advice. Given that you're qualified to give that advice, or that advice is solicited or is sought from you, because sometimes people give advice without being asked, or the advice that they're giving, they may not be qualified to give that advice, right? So these are the 6 rights of the believers, right? Greeting and responding to the greeting, right? If the person sneezes, right? Tashmit al-atas, you basically, if the person invites you, you respond to their invitation. If they ask for your advice, you give them advice. If they're sick, you visit them. If the person dies, you basically attend, or you go to the service, to the funeral service. There are, more things that we can say, but let me just conclude by saying a couple of things, 2 things. One, with regards to love and respect that believers should have for one another. Because these things are, etiquette, things that external, but there's internal aspects as well. Believers are supposed to care for one another and love one another for the sake of God, right? And it has to be for the sake of it, not for personal interest, not for whatever, should have respect for each other and honor one another and love one another and care for one another. The Prophet said that there are 3 elements, one of which is, these 3 elements will ensure that you enjoy the taste, the sweetness of faith. Faith has a very sweet, pleasant taste. The Prophet said those who possess these qualities will have them. One of these qualities that were mentioned is that when you love an individual, you love them for the sake of God. For the sake of God. Unconditional love. For the sake of God. Not for any other reason. Not because they're funny. Not because they're nice or kind to you. Not because they're attractive. Not because they're of the same ethnic background. Again, these things could cause you to bond with someone or be closer. But that intelligent, right? The believer has an emotional intelligence, right? An emotional intelligence. So if you're emotionally intelligent, then you will be someone that will care and love someone for the sake of God, because that person reflects you. That person, the Prophet said, "Al-mu'minu mir'atu akhi." Believers are like a mirror to one another. That's a reflection of you, right? Right. So that's one thing, that you have that. Number 2, the Prophet said, none of you is a true believer. Like none of you is sincere, truly a believer, until that person loves for his brethren or for his sister, until we love for each other what you love for yourself. Right? Until you love for the other person what you love for yourself. You're not in a competition. The only competition you have with a person is in matters of, we're competing in matter of hereafter. We're competing in trying to please God. We're competing in doing good. But you're not in a competition to possess more or to look better or to sound better or to be better than anyone else. Materialist, worldly speaking. Yeah, right? Be as good as you can be. Be the best you can. Again, it's not about, Islam wants us to be ambitious people and to be, but we seek whatever we seek for the good that we can do through it. Right? So we shouldn't be, and while I am growing or I want what is best for myself, I should wish and want what is best for other people as well. Otherwise, that individual is not sincere. I don't know if you read a book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about how we should all adopt and think win-win. The most successful people, the best of people, the most pleasant of people, the greatest people are people who think win-win. They want to win, but they want other people to win as well. They want what is good for other people as well as for themselves, right? You should not be thinking, there are some people who are, I should lose so somebody else can win. No. You see, that kind of, people say, well, isn't that selfless? That kind of selflessness is not necessarily celebrated in mainstream Islam. You should not sacrifice yourself for other people, right? You should think, what is good for other people and what is good for yourself at the same time. God has plenty for all of us, right? Because also, if you're in good state, if you can take care of yourself, you can take care of other people as well. Because you don't live only for yourself, right? And as they say, in case of loss of oxygen or pressure, right? Oxygen masks will drop. Right? Help yourself first, and then what do? Take care of the other person. But you still care for the other person. You don't say, okay, I'm breathing, I'm doing fine. Right? So you should think win-win. And definitely, you should not think win-lose. I gotta win, so everybody else has to lose in order for me to be a winner. That's satanic. That's not Islamic. And then, of course, you have lose-lose. People who are just so... No, it's not alayhi wa adai. People who don't want others to lose, to win, they lose, and they want to lose. They don't want anyone to win. I don't know why. Yeah. Actually, that is more satanic than anything else because he's a loser, so he wants everybody else to lose, with him. So you should wish for others or want for other people what you want for yourself, and you should have this genuine love and admiration for your brethren. I say this and I ask God to forgive me, and ask Him to bless our gathering. If you have any question, suggestion, objection, or comment,